Dust swirled through the air as Aaron Whitlock pressed his back against the rusted door of the collapsed convenience store. His breath came in shallow bursts, his hands trembling around the grip of a rusted crowbar. Outside, the ruins of what was once a thriving city echoed with the distant groans of the dead. They were always searching, always listening. He hadn't seen another living soul in 8 days. Or maybe 9. Time blurred in a place where night didn't always mean darkness, just a deeper kind of dread. Concrete skeletons of buildings jutted into the sky like broken fingers. The wind howled through shattered windows, carrying with it the moans of those who had died screaming. Aaron had been a construction engineer before the outbreak. Now, he was just another survivor scrambling to stay one step ahead of the walking corpses. The infected, dead-eyed, relentless, weren't fast, but they were everywhere. They filled every alley, stalked every street, and turned every shadow into a potential death sentence. His radio crackled again. At first, he thought it was a trick of the mind, wishful thinking born from too many silent nights in empty buildings. But then he heard it, a voice. Faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. Anyone out there, Sector 6, shelter intact, coordinates. Static swallowed the rest. Aaron lunged forward, fumbling to adjust the frequency. Hello? Hello? This is Aaron Whitlock, I'm alive. I'm trapped near Holcomb and 9th, please, say again. Silence. He stared at the radio, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the wind. Then the voice came again, clearer this time, but fading. Sector 6, signal repeats every 3 hours, survivors welcome. The transmission ended. Hope? A dangerous thing in a world like this. He had been surviving on expired canned food and dirty water scavenged from broken pipes. But the thought of a shelter, real walls, real people, shoved the hunger aside. He could feel adrenaline lighting up his veins. He had to get out of this sector. Aaron folded the map he'd salvaged from a gas station weeks ago. Sector 6 was on the other side of the city, miles across the zombie-infested ruins. Between him and salvation stood collapsed highways, dark subway tunnels, and the dead. But what choice did he have? He packed quickly. A cracked flashlight, 2 energy bars, a half-filled water bottle, and the crowbar. He didn't have a gun, hadn't seen one since the first month. He preferred it that way. Guns were noise, and noise meant death. Aaron stepped outside into the gray light of dawn. The city's jagged skyline loomed in the distance, hollow and burned. He moved low, hugging the edge of buildings and stepping around broken glass with practiced care. As he rounded the corner of a burned-out pharmacy, he froze. A child's tricycle sat in the middle of the road, rusted and still. Beyond it, the bodies. 3 of them. All lying in the street, twisted at odd angles. At first glance, they looked like the dead who had fallen long ago. But Aaron's instincts screamed otherwise. He crouched behind an overturned car and waited. Then he saw it, the twitch of a finger. The slow rise of a chest. They're playing dead, he muttered. Smart zombies were rare, but not unheard of. Some retained fragments of who they were, tricks, traps, ambushes. These weren't just corpses. They were bait. Aaron backed away slowly, choosing a new path through the alley behind the old print shop. He moved quietly, stepping over tangled roots and shattered bricks. As he crept forward, he heard it, shuffling. A group. He ducked behind a dumpster, peering through a crack in the wall. 5 zombies. Maybe 6. Shuffling slowly, groaning. But something was off. They weren't moving randomly. They were tracking something. Someone. A figure darted across the alley, tall, fast, human. Aaron's heart jumped. Another survivor. The person turned and bolted into an open loading dock, with the zombies following fast. Without thinking, Aaron followed. He found himself in the dark of an abandoned warehouse. The sound of footsteps echoed. The survivor was sprinting up a staircase, the infected just seconds behind. Aaron didn't hesitate. He charged forward and swung the crowbar with all his strength, smashing it into the skull of the lead zombie. Bone cracked. Blood sprayed. The others turned. He fought like a man with nothing to lose, silent, brutal. When it was over, 3 more lay broken on the ground. The survivors stared down from the catwalk above, young woman, maybe mid-20s, holding a makeshift spear. She looked just as shocked as he was. "Who are you?" she called. "Aaron. I heard a signal. Sector 6. You hear it too?" She nodded. "Name's Kira. We need to move. Now." He climbed the stairs, chest heaving. The city still groaned with danger, but now he wasn't alone. And somewhere ahead, a voice on the radio promised something no one had dared dream of in months. Safety. Aaron followed Kira down a twisted metal staircase that groaned under their weight. The warehouse trembled with silence now, broken only by the sound of their boots scraping concrete and the distant moan of the wind. They didn't speak. Words felt fragile in places like this. Kira moved like someone who had done this before, fast, quiet, always checking corners. She wasn't just surviving, she was hunting a way out. That confidence was rare. "You were listening to the radio too?" Aaron finally asked, keeping his voice low. Kira gave a short nod. "Caught it 2 nights ago. Faint, but real. I was trying to reach Sector 6 through the surface routes. Didn't go well." Aaron didn't ask what "didn't go well" meant. The bruises on her arms and the blood on her shirt told enough of the story. "Surface is suicide," she added. "We'll use the tunnels." Aaron's stomach sank. The subway system hadn't worked since the world fell apart. It was dark, flooded in some areas, and filled with more than just the dead. People whispered about what lurked down there, things that didn't moan or shuffle, things that waited. But Kira was already moving. They crossed the street behind the warehouse, slipping through an alley choked with debris and scorched posters flapping in the wind. At the far end stood a rusted steel gate. Behind it, the gaping black mouth of a subway entrance. Aaron hesitated. "You sure this is a good idea?" "No," Kira replied, forcing the gate open with a groan of metal. "But it's the only one we've got." They descended into darkness. The air grew cooler, thick with mildew and decay. Their flashlights flickered over broken tile, shattered glass, and ancient graffiti. Somewhere deeper, water dripped endlessly, echoing like the ticking of a broken clock. Aaron adjusted his grip on the crowbar. Every instinct screamed to turn back, but forward was the only direction left. The tunnel opened into a station long abandoned, turnstiles torn from the floor, benches overturned, old emergency signs peeling off the walls. And silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that made your skin crawl. "This way," Kira whispered, leading him down onto the tracks. They walked for minutes that felt like hours. Occasionally, they passed skeletons of trains, dark and cold, their windows shattered and doors ripped off. Aaron kept glancing behind them, his nerves prickling. "Something's following us," he said under his breath. Kira didn't stop. "I know." She raised her flashlight and shone it behind them, nothing but darkness. Still, Aaron felt it. Something was down there with them. Then came the sound, clink, metal against metal. Not a groan. Not a shuffle. Deliberate. Almost intelligent. They both froze. Kira motioned to a service alcove on the side of the tunnel, and they ducked inside, killing their lights. Aaron's breath caught in his throat. Footsteps echoed. Not zombie footsteps. Heavier. Rhythmic. They watched. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was wearing scavenged riot armor, dirty, mismatched, blood-stained. A helmet concealed the face. It held a long weapon, part spear, part blade. Not a zombie. Not a friend, either. Aaron tensed. "Is that?" Kira leaned close. "Tunnel stalkers. Ex-military or something. They live down here. Hunt anyone trying to get through." The figure paused near their hiding place. For a moment, Aaron thought the man would turn and leave. Then the figure slowly turned his head. Kira reacted first. She shoved Aaron out of the alcove and shouted, "Run!" The stalker lunged, slicing his blade against the wall where they'd just been. Sparks lit up the tunnel as Aaron sprinted alongside Kira, dodging debris and leaping over loose ties. Behind them, footsteps thundered. Up ahead, a half-open maintenance door beckoned. Kira kicked it open, and they slipped inside, slamming it shut behind them just as the stalker struck it with a deafening clang. The steel bent slightly, but held. They stumbled into a pitch-black maintenance corridor. Aaron leaned against the wall, chest heaving. "That's what's down here," he gasped. "One of many," Kira said, checking her flashlight. "They protect their territory. Or maybe they just enjoy the hunt." Aaron looked around. The corridor reeked of oil and rot. Pipes hissed above them. Somewhere in the dark, rats squealed. Kira led them forward. "We need to find a service ladder. It's not far. There's an old ventilation shaft that leads above ground." Aaron hesitated. "You're sure?" She gave him a tired smile. Sure enough. They found the ladder minutes later, metal, rusted, but intact. As Kira climbed first, Aaron took one last look down the corridor. The maintenance door behind them remained closed. But something scratched softly on the other side. He climbed fast. They emerged into a shattered building, the remains of a bank, judging by the marble floor and crumbling columns. Daylight streamed in through a collapsed roof. Aaron squinted into the light. Kira stood beside him, eyes scanning the horizon. "We're halfway to Sector 6, she said. "Only halfway?" he asked, exhausted. "Maybe less," she replied, cracking a wry grin. "But we're still breathing. That counts for something." Outside, the city waited. But so did the signal. And maybe, just maybe, salvation. The daylight didn't last long. By the time Aaron and Kira made it through the crumbled bank lobby and into the open street, the sky was dimming with early dusk. Ash still floated through the air, carried by winds that never stopped howling through the ruined city. Every corner looked like it had seen war, and maybe worse. Cars sat like rusted skeletons, stacked and charred. Buildings leaned like drunk giants, broken windows gaping like black eyes. They moved quickly, ducking behind burned-out vehicles and overturned dumpsters. Kira led the way, sticking to side streets and broken alleys. "How much farther to Sector 6? Aaron asked. 5 miles, Kira replied, without slowing. "But those 5 might be the hardest." Aaron nodded, trying to ignore the gnawing ache in his legs. His encounter with the tunnel stalker had rattled him, and the silence out here was worse. At least in the subways, the threat was clear. Up here, it felt like the city itself was watching them. They reached an intersection where 4 buildings had collapsed into one another, forming a jagged path of twisted steel and fractured brick. Kira hesitated. "We can't go around," she muttered. "Too exposed." Aaron looked up the incline of rubble. "So we climb?" "Yeah. And fast." The ruins groaned under their weight as they ascended. Shards of glass crunched underfoot. Halfway up, Aaron froze. He heard it first, a faint, wet dragging sound. It was coming from the other side of the rubble. Kira crouched low, motioning for silence. She crept forward, peering through a gap in the broken concrete. Her breath caught. A small courtyard sat on the other side, once a park, now a grave. At least a dozen zombies wandered aimlessly inside. Most were gone and slow, flesh hanging in ribbons. But one was different. It stood still. Watching. Aaron pressed closer, just enough to glimpse it. This one wore part of a firefighter's uniform, though it was barely recognizable. What made it different wasn't the suit, it was the way it moved. Not random. Not mindless. Deliberate. "They're adapting," Kira whispered. "Learning." Aaron shook his head. "That's not possible. Tell that to that one. The firefighter zombie turned suddenly, sniffing the air. They ducked instinctively. Go, Kira hissed. Now. They scrambled down the other side of the rubble, ignoring the jagged cuts on their hands and arms. Behind them, a shriek pierced the air, high-pitched, guttural. The infected had seen them. Zombies began pouring out of the courtyard like floodwater. Aaron and Kira hit the street running. They weaved through abandoned storefronts, shattered sidewalks, and alleys so narrow they had to squeeze through sideways. The dead were relentless. The smarter one, if that's what it was, led them with terrifying speed, climbing, leaping, flanking. Aaron's legs burned, lungs on fire. They're not slowing. We make it to the fire station, Kira called, pointing. It's got a reinforced garage. We lock it and regroup. They rounded a corner and skidded to a halt. A downed helicopter smoldered in the street, its broken rotor blades tangled in power lines. Bodies were everywhere. Some burned, others still crawling. Aaron gagged at the smell. Kira yanked him sideways into a shattered storefront. Inside, shelves were overturned, merchandise scattered, dust thick in the air. Through the back, she ordered. They bolted through a kitchen and kicked open a rusted service door. The fire station loomed 2 blocks ahead. A red monolith, its once pristine walls now blackened with soot and blood. The doors were open. They dashed inside and slammed the steel door shut behind them. Kira dropped the bolt into place just as the first zombie slammed into it from the other side. Aaron collapsed against the wall, panting. Kira checked the upper windows, then motioned him toward the back stairwell. Up. We don't stay ground level. Not anymore. On the second floor, they found the remnants of a living space, cots, half-eaten food, bloodstains. Someone had made a last stand here. They didn't win. Aaron found a map pinned to the wall. Look. Kira moved beside him. The map was marked in red and black ink, routes leading towards Sector 6, some crossed out, others circled. They were trying to escape too, she murmured. A crash below. Both turned toward the stairs. Aaron gripped his crowbar. How long will that door hold? Not long, Kira said. They're getting smarter. They're starting to test things. Another thud. A crack echoed. The bolt was bending. Aaron looked at her. Then we move now. Kira grabbed 2 flares and a radio off the shelf. We take the roof. Jump the gap to the next building. We stay above the streets now. It's our only chance. Aaron hesitated, staring down the stairwell. Whatever was breaking in, it was no longer just the mindless dead. It was something worse. The rooftop was slick with rain. Aaron and Kira emerged into the chill wind, hearts pounding, the sky above a smothering gray. Across the alley, only 10 feet away, the next rooftop beckoned, a flat, tarred surface barely higher than the one they stood on. But between them lay a drop that promised broken bones if they missed. Below, the dead howled. The firehouse door finally gave way with a scream of tearing steel. Zombies spilled into the building, crashing against walls, drawn by the scent of survivors. They're in, Aaron said, backing up for a running start. Kira tossed her backpack across the gap first. It landed with a thud on the far roof. You go first. No, he said. You know the route. You have to make it. We don't argue when we're about to die, Kira snapped, voice tight with fear. Aaron didn't wait to counter. He sprinted, boots slamming against the slick concrete. His leap wasn't graceful, but it was enough. He landed hard, rolled, and nearly slid off the other side. Go, he shouted. Kira backed up, ran, then jumped. For a second, she hung in the air, and Aaron's heart stopped. But she landed beside him, skidding into his arms. They didn't pause. The rooftop ahead had a path of plywood and metal sheeting laid between rusted ventilation ducts and fallen AC units. Someone else had traveled this route. Survivors? Scouts? Whoever made this trail knew what they were doing, Kira muttered. A metal ladder led up another story, this one to the top of a shopping complex. They climbed quickly. But as Aaron reached the last rung, he spotted something, movement, 2 rooftops down. He squinted. A figure stood on a rooftop balcony. Pale, unmoving. Not a zombie. Or maybe, something in between. Kira saw it too. It's watching us. They ducked low behind an old billboard frame. From the distance, they couldn't see its eyes. But they felt them. What is that? Aaron asked. Maybe a scout. Maybe worse. The figure turned and disappeared. Kira cursed under her breath. We're being tracked. They moved again, faster this time. The path wound across rooftops, broken beams, makeshift planks, shattered skylights they had to step over carefully. The wind howled harder up here, bringing with it the sound of distant screams and the ever-present groans of the dead. Half an hour passed before they reached a resting point, a small rooftop greenhouse, glass mostly intact. Inside, it was quiet. Damp. Filled with abandoned plants and stale water. Kira sank to the floor, pulling off her jacket. Her arm bled from a deep gash. Clipped by rebar back there. Aaron opened his pack and unwrapped gauze. You should have said something. Didn't have time. He cleaned and wrapped it carefully. Neither of them spoke for a while. Outside, the city groaned with undead hunger. Why are you really heading to Sector 6? Aaron asked finally. It's not just about safety, is it? Kira didn't answer right away. My brother was part of a communications unit stationed there. He sent out a final broadcast 2 weeks ago. Said there was a plan, something about an extraction zone. Then the signal went dark. You think he's still alive? I don't know. But if he is, I'm going to find him. Aaron nodded. Then we're getting to Sector 6. He stood and moved to the window. That's when he saw them. Zombies, dozens, climbing. Not just shambling up the streets. No. These were using fire escapes, balconies, debris piles. Some fell. Others reached the rooftops. They're adapting, he said again, voice barely above a whisper. Kira looked out and froze. How are they learning this fast? Aaron checked his weapons, just a crowbar and 2 flare rounds left. Time to move. They exited the greenhouse, heading toward a crumbling skybridge linking 2 buildings. It swayed in the wind, glass shattered along its sides. Below, death waited in endless numbers. Kira stepped onto the bridge first. It creaked, but held. Aaron followed, eyes scanning every shadow. Halfway across, something crashed onto the bridge behind them. Aaron spun, expecting a zombie. It was worse. The pale figure from earlier now stood just 20 feet away. Human in shape, but its skin was gray-blue, veins pulsing with black rot. It didn't groan. It smiled. Aaron raised his flare gun. Don't come closer. The thing didn't listen. Kira reached the far side and turned. Aaron, now! He fired. The flare slammed into the creature's chest, lighting it up in searing red. It shrieked, twisting in agony as flames engulfed it. But it didn't fall. It stepped forward, burning. Aaron backed away in horror. What is that? Kira grabbed him. Forget it. Move. They ran, the bridge collapsing behind them. The last thing Aaron saw before the world dropped out from under them was the burning figure still standing, smiling in the firelight. The world was spinning. Aaron hit the rooftop hard, air exploding from his lungs. The collapsed skybridge groaned and twisted behind him, crashing in pieces to the alley below. Flames licked at the night sky where the burning creature had stood, now swallowed in smoke and ruin. Aaron! Kira's voice dragged him back. She knelt beside him, shaking his shoulders. I'm fine, he choked, though his ribs screamed otherwise. What was that thing? I don't know, she said. But it wasn't just another zombie. They limped forward, battered but alive, deeper into the heart of the city. Around them, the buildings loomed like tombstones, their glass eyes long shattered, concrete faces scarred by time and violence. The rain had stopped, but a low mist hugged the streets. Every corner felt like a trap waiting to spring. This part of the city was abandoned even before the outbreak, Kira whispered, scanning windows with her flashlight off. Too unstable. Full of sinkholes and subways that flooded years ago. Aaron tightened his grip on the crowbar. Sounds like a great place to hide, or get hunted. They reached the edge of the rooftop and looked down. A shattered fire escape led to a half-flooded alley littered with broken signage and bones. A rusted ladder dangled from the wall. Kira motioned for Aaron to follow. They descended in silence. When they hit the alley floor, it was too quiet. No moans. No echoing groans. Just water dripping and metal creaking far off in the dark. Aaron scanned the shadows. Something's wrong. Kira pointed to a manhole cover up ahead, ajar. Someone used that recently. She crouched, inspecting the edges. Still wet. No rust on the lip. Someone or something went down there in the last few hours. Aaron raised a brow. You want to follow? Kira's face was grim. No. But I think we have to. The manhole gave way with a wet groan, revealing a ladder slick with slime and graffiti. They climbed down into the dark, swallowed by the underbelly of the ruined city. Below, the tunnel opened into a wide sewer system, part subway, part maintenance route. The air reeked of rot and mildew. Pipes groaned above them. The only light came from Aaron's flickering flashlight, painting long shadows on the crumbling walls. They walked in silence, every footstep echoing like a gunshot. Then they heard it. Not groaning. Not growling. Whispering. Faint. Human voices, echoing from somewhere up ahead. They froze. Aaron held up a hand. You hear that? Kira nodded slowly, hand resting on her knife. People? They moved cautiously, hugging the walls, deeper into the tunnels. After a turn, they found the source. A group of survivors, 5 of them, huddled around a makeshift fire. They wore scavenged armor, mismatched gear, and tired expressions. A woman stood with a shotgun. She saw Aaron and Kira before they could duck back. Don't move, she said calmly, aiming at them. Show your hands. Aaron raised both. We're not infected. Prove it, she snapped. Kira slowly lifted her sleeves, showing clean skin. We came from the west. Sector 3. We're headed to 6. That changed something in their expressions. The shotgun lowered. The woman stepped closer. You know how to get there? Kira shrugged. We know someone who might be alive there. A grizzled man stood. We've been trying to reach Sector 6 too. You're the first outsiders we've seen in days. Another survivor, a teenage boy with burn scars on his neck, spoke up. You came from up top? Aaron nodded. We saw something. A new kind of infected. Fast. Intelligent. Burned and kept moving. That sent a ripple of tension through the group. We've seen them too, the woman said. We call them echoes. They remember things. Follow noise. Track heat. And they're not alone. They're part of something worse. Kira leaned in. Worse? The woman nodded. There's a place deeper in these tunnels. A zone the infected avoid. But we've seen movement there, humans, but not survivors. They do things to the zombies. Experiment on them. Aaron blinked. You think someone's controlling the infection? No, the woman said. We think someone's enhancing it. The idea chilled them all. Kira stepped closer. You have a map? The group hesitated, then the grizzled man unrolled a piece of paper. Lines, tunnels, blocked routes. One path was circled in red. That's our shot at Sector 6, he said. But it goes right past their zone. Aaron looked at Kira. We're going through, aren't we?" She nodded. "It's the only way." They agreed to move at first light, if light still existed in a world like this. That night, as they tried to sleep among strangers in the cold belly of the city, Aaron heard something down the tunnel. Not moans. Not whispers. Laughter. Distant. Hollow. Human, but not. And it was getting closer. Aaron didn't sleep that night. Neither did Kira. The faint, twisted laughter had faded, but its echo stayed in their minds like a curse. Whatever was out there in the tunnels wasn't a regular infected. It wasn't even one of the so-called echoes. It sounded aware. Playful. The next morning, or what they assumed was morning, they packed up in silence. The tunnel's cold air seemed thicker, as if even it knew they were heading towards something unnatural. The survivors they'd joined, Callie, the leader with the shotgun, Reese, the quiet older man with maps, Jonah, the teenager with scars, and two others, Mike and Sal, had all voted. Sector 6 was the goal, but to reach it, they had to pass through the zone none of them wanted to speak of too loudly, the lab. "We'll move fast, no lights unless we need them," Callie said, strapping her gear tighter. "No loud talking. If you hear something strange, don't investigate, just move." They entered the lower tunnels as a group, guns ready, steps light. Aaron stayed close to Kira, his grip on the crowbar tighter than ever. The deeper they went, the worse the smell got. It wasn't just rot anymore. It was chemical. Burned hair. Acid. The walls around them changed, too, less crumbling concrete, more steel. Someone had reinforced these tunnels long after the city had fallen. "What is this place?" Kira whispered. Reese answered quietly. "Military tried to build a fallback here before the outbreak spread. Didn't end well. The tunnel split into 3 forks. All were dark." Reese pointed to the center. "That leads straight through. But we go fast, and we don't stop, no matter what." They crept in. The corridor stretched on like a throat, long and narrow. Strange wires hung from the ceiling, swaying slightly, though there was no breeze. The walls were smeared with black scorch marks and something else, claw marks. Then they heard it. A mechanical hum. Not loud, but constant. Like a machine left running too long. Red lights blinked up ahead. Aaron froze, recognizing the source. Motion sensors. Jonah hissed, "They're still powered?" Kira pulled him back. "Get low. We might be able to crawl under them." One by one, they slid beneath the sensors. The hallway ahead opened into a chamber that looked like a lab, a twisted, half-destroyed medical room filled with broken screens, shattered glass, and blood-stained restraints on metal tables. Aaron stared at one table, where shackles hung open. Dried blood had soaked into the padded restraints. Callie crouched and pointed to a nearby wall, where someone had scrawled a message in what looked like rust, or worse. "They're watching from the dark." Kira whispered, "We shouldn't be here." As they crossed the lab, they passed large glass containment units. Most were cracked or empty. But one still held something inside, barely visible through the foggy surface. A person. No. Not a person anymore. The thing inside looked like it used to be human, muscles torn, flesh misshapen, face frozen in a silent scream. Tubes were still embedded in its back, and wires trailed into the wall. The eyes were sewn shut. Jonah stumbled back. What the hell were they doing? Reese muttered, "Testing. Enhancing. Maybe even trying to control them." The silence was broken by a sharp click. They all froze. The red sensor above the far door had turned green. Someone had triggered the door. From the hallway beyond came soft, deliberate footsteps. Aaron whispered, "We're not alone." Callie raised her shotgun. "Hide. Now." They scattered behind overturned tables, inside dark alcoves. Aaron and Kira ducked behind a storage unit. The footsteps drew closer, echoing through the chamber. Then he appeared. A man. Or what used to be one. His face was half covered with a steel mask bolted into his jaw. One arm was mechanical, hissing with pressurized air. His other eye glowed faint red. But the rest of him was unmistakably human, scarred, alive, and fully aware. He walked through the lab like he owned it, inspecting monitors and machinery, unaware, or unconcerned, that anyone watched him. Kira whispered, "That's not an infected." Aaron nodded. "That's a handler." Then, the man stopped suddenly. His red eyes scanned the room. And he smiled. "I know you're here," he said calmly, voice metallic. "And I know where you're going." He turned his head slowly. "You can run to Sector 6. You can hide behind your fences. But the evolution has already begun." He reached for a nearby terminal, tapped a few keys, and alarms began to blare. Containment breach triggered. The chamber shook. Behind them, the glass of the containment tanks began to crack. The handler smiled wider. "Run." The survivors bolted. Aaron grabbed Kira's hand, dragging her into the hallway as the tanks shattered in screams. Not human, not zombie, but something new, filled the lab behind them. They had made it through the dark zone. But something had followed. And now, there was no turning back. The scream that tore through the tunnel wasn't natural. It didn't belong to a man, woman, or any zombie Aaron had ever heard. It was sharp, metallic, like a dying machine learning how to cry. Aaron and Kira didn't look back. They ran. Behind them, the group scattered in a mad dash through the industrial tunnels beyond the lab. The sound of breaking glass and screeching metal filled the passageways, followed by something worse, fast, clawing footsteps that didn't pause or tire. Reese shouted, "Left! Follow the yellow pipe." They darted down a side tunnel, their boots echoing off the rusted steel. Kira stumbled, but Aaron caught her by the arm, pulling her upright. A door slammed shut behind them. Mike had sealed the hatch. But it wouldn't hold long. A second later, a clang shook the wall. Then another. Whatever those creatures were, they were strong enough to punch through metal. Callie panted as she checked her ammo. "We need to get topside. Fast." Jonah, pale and bleeding from a cut across his temple, muttered, "What were those things?" Reese didn't answer. He just looked down grimly at the map and pointed to a ladder. "That leads to the old courthouse ruins. From there, Sector 6 is half a mile across the dead zone." Aaron helped Kira up first, then climbed after her, his heart pounding with every clank of the ladder. The noises below were growing, multiple footsteps now, not one. And they were getting closer. They emerged into a hollowed-out courtroom lit by shafts of sunlight through the crumbled roof. Mold crept across the floor, and old flags hung in tatters from the ceiling. The gavel stand still stood, eerily untouched. "It's quiet," Kira whispered, "too quiet." A loud bang echoed below them. "Move!" Callie barked. The survivors bolted through the ruined chamber, weaving past broken benches and collapsed stone. As they pushed through a side door, Aaron caught a glimpse of something behind them, just for a second. Not a zombie. A figure. Hunched. Skin stretched unnaturally. Eyes glowing faintly green. And it was smiling. They raced down a collapsed hallway and burst into the open. The sky was a sickly gray, overcast and buzzing with the sound of wind cutting through ruined towers. Before them stretched what used to be a city square, now cracked, scorched, and littered with debris and bones. Beyond that, the outer fences of Sector 6 were visible. Just a half-mile of open terrain to cross. Too open. No cover. "No turning back," Reese muttered. Callie nodded. "Everyone stay low, move fast." They ducked behind what cover they could find, burnt-out cars, slabs of fallen concrete, skeletal lamp posts. The courthouse faded behind them, and with it, the terrible noise. Then, silence. Too much silence. Aaron glanced around. "Where's Sal?" They froze. Sal wasn't with them. "Back in the tunnel," Reese said grimly. "He didn't make it out." Nobody spoke. Then a sharp crack echoed from the far edge of the square. A high-pitched whistle followed, then a burst of dust near Callie's feet. A sniper? Kira gasped. Aaron yanked her behind a wrecked car. Someone doesn't want us reaching Sector 6. Move! Callie shouted. They ran. Gunfire ripped across the square, controlled bursts. Not zombies. Trained shooters. Aaron ducked and saw the source, figures on rooftops. Men with armor. Not quite military, not resistance either. Faces hidden by black visors. Mercenaries. Or worse, hunters working for the handler. Jonah screamed as a bullet grazed his shoulder. He dropped, but Reese hauled him up, dragging him as they sprinted. Keep going! Reese yelled. Kira looked to Aaron, panic in her eyes. We're not gonna make it. He scanned the ruins. Then pointed. Storm drain. There. A narrow opening in the ground, mostly hidden by debris. Without thinking, Aaron pried it open and dropped inside. He reached up, grabbing Kira's hand and pulling her after him. One by one, the others followed, bullets pinging off the ground around them. The moment Callie dropped in, Aaron yanked the cover shut. Darkness swallowed them. The air inside was damp, foul, but silent. They had escaped, for now. Reese lit a red flare, revealing the drain system stretched ahead, coated in algae and filth. We head west. There's an old escape tunnel from the police station that links to Sector 6's outer perimeter. Aaron glanced back. What about those snipers? Callie wiped blood from her cheek. They weren't trying to kill us. They were pushing us. Toward what? As if in response, a low mechanical growl echoed from deeper inside the tunnel. Then another. And then silence again. Reese tightened his grip on the flare. They're waiting. Whatever those things were in the lab, they were just a test. Aaron felt it, too. A pressure. Like the air itself knew they were nearing something final. Kira stepped close to him. If we don't make it. We will, Aaron said firmly. We have to. They pushed deeper into the drain, the red glow ahead of them their only guide. Behind them, shadows slithered. And ahead, the truth waited. Ready for Part 8, the final chapter? The red flare flickered in Reese's hand, its light casting long, shivering shadows on the damp walls of the storm drain. Water dripped from above, echoing like footsteps. No one spoke. Each survivor listened, holding their breath, waiting for the next sound, the next scream, the next proof they hadn't imagined those inhuman things chasing them through the underground. Aaron led the way now, his shoulders tense, rifle gripped tight. Kira stayed close behind him, her eyes darting through the gloom. It's just ahead, Reese whispered, pointing to a sloped tunnel that curved upward into darkness. That's the route that connects to the backside of Sector 6. If it hasn't collapsed. Everything else nearly has, Callie muttered, wincing as she limped. Her leg was bleeding, torn from shrapnel back in the square. She hadn't said a word until now, but her face was pale. Jonah, bandaged but alive, gave her his arm for support. We've come too far to fall short. They reached a rusted steel hatch at the top of the slope. Reese ran his fingers across the corroded bolts. This hasn't been opened in years. Might be locked from the other side. Aaron stepped forward. Let me. He wedged his crowbar into the seam, teeth clenched, sweat stinging his eyes. With a sharp grunt, he pulled, and the hatch creaked, then gave. Cold, fresh air rushed in. Daylight spilled through the crack. Freedom. Go, Aaron whispered. One at a time. They emerged into a forgotten courtyard behind Sector 6's outer wall, cracked pavement surrounded by chain-link fencing and dead ivy. Old warning signs hung crookedly from posts. No one else in sight. Kira looked around in disbelief. We made it. Reese pulled out a flare and waved it. Seconds passed. Then floodlights flicked on above them. A voice crackled from a loudspeaker. Drop your weapons. Hands in the air. Do it now. Aaron froze. Soldiers in dark gray armor surrounded the courtyard, rifles raised. But these weren't resistance fighters. Their patches bore no flag. Just a symbol, an eye surrounded by circuitry. Not welcoming, Callie muttered. The loudspeaker boomed again. You've trespassed in a restricted zone. Surrender and you won't be harmed. Kira looked at Aaron. We can't trust them. That symbol, it's the same one on the lab walls. Aaron clenched his fists. They were never trying to stop the virus. They were perfecting it. One of the soldiers stepped forward, visor raised. To their shock, it was the handler from the lab, the same man who'd ordered the experiment that killed their friends. I'm glad you made it, he said coldly. You've proven yourselves useful. Aaron raised his weapon but was met with a dozen barrels aimed back. Don't be foolish, the handler said. You've survived what most couldn't. We need people like you. You experimented on humans, Kira said. You created those monsters. They were prototypes, the handler replied. You saw how efficient they were. The world's changed. We adapt, or we perish. You, of all people, should understand that. Reese stepped forward. You call that adapting? You're building a world that doesn't need humans. Just weapons. The handler smiled faintly. That depends on how useful the humans are. Then, behind the handler, something changed. The soldiers turned suddenly, alerted by a sound only they heard. The drain behind the survivors exploded in a spray of metal and concrete. From it, emerged the horror they thought they'd left behind. It wasn't just one of the creatures now. It was 5. Twisted, fast, and utterly silent. Chaos erupted. The hybrids lunged into the ranks of the soldiers, tearing them apart with unnatural speed. Gunfire cracked the air. Screams followed. Aaron grabbed Kira's hand. Run! They dashed across the courtyard toward a breach in the fence. Callie and Jonah followed, Reese close behind, dragging a dropped pack filled with supplies. The handler shouted commands, trying to regain control, but the creatures weren't listening anymore. They were free. And hungry. Aaron led the others through the torn fence and into the open field beyond. In the distance, Sector 6 interior gates loomed, still intact, guarded, and manned by real soldiers. Resistance fighters. One of them spotted the group. Hold your fire. Survivors coming in. The gate began to rise. Aaron didn't stop. Move! The hybrids behind them shrieked, bounding over fences and bodies alike. One caught up to Jonah, but Callie spun and shot it point blank in the head, the impact knocking her off her feet. Reese hauled her up. Keep going! They burst through the gate just as it slammed shut behind them. Silence. Inside, real humans, resistance medics and fighters, rushed toward them. They were safe. For now. Kira collapsed into Aaron's arms. We did it. We really did it. He held her close. We're not done yet. But we finally have a chance. Above them, the sun broke through the clouds. Beyond the gate, the ruins still burned. But inside, for the first time in a long while, hope flickered back to life. They had survived the wasteland. Now, the real fight could begin. Let me know when you're ready for the next title or a new series.